Welcome back to Outnumbered. Big problems for President Obama's controversial immigration policy. Federal Judge Andrew Hannon of Texas scolding a Justice Department attorney on Thursday, threatening the DOJ with sanctions at a hearing on the president's executive actions. The judge suggesting the administration ignored his request to halt a key part of the program, shielding thousands of young illegal immigrants from deportation who were brought to the U.S. as children. The DOJ said it would not go forward with this part of the program. But in fact, federal officials had already given more than 100,000 people a 3-year reprieve before the ruling and had given them work permits as well. 26 states, led by Texas, had previously filed a lawsuit challenging the administration's policy as unconstitutional. And then in February, Judge Hannon sided with them, issuing a preliminary injunction blocking the president's actions. Meantime, the administration has asked an appeals court to lift Judge Hannon's injunction while this case is appealed. So we want to discuss this. Judge, we're going to go with you to start off this conversation. What happens next? Do we go to a federal court? What happens?
Well, I think that, the appeals court is being asked to lift the injunction, so that's separate and apart. The federal judge is rightfully ticked off that the misrepresentations were clearly made. Whether they were intentional, they were unintentional, they might have been inadvertent, that remains to be seen. And if it turns out that they are intentional and that there are more misrepresentations that really haven't been revealed, this is not a judge you want to mess with. Federal judges, I would rather anger God than a federal judge, because God is forgiving. Federal judges are not forgiving, and they have a lot of power. State judges have a certain amount of power, but federal judges, when they lock you up, nobody lets you out. So whether he'll impose sanctions or not, I don't know, because he did ask them who pays the sanctions, the taxpayer, right? So if he imposes sanctions against the Obama administration for misrepresentations made in court, if they're monetary sanctions, basically we're paying for it. And I don't know if
Andrew, the administration promised one thing. The judge says he got something different, that 108,000 illegal immigrants were allowed to stay for 3 more years because they were raised here and they were brought here when they were young. Now, the judge said, quote, "Like an idiot, I believe them," talking about the DOJ. So do you think that the administration was trying to mislead this judge?
Quite possibly. And this is the same week that we heard a border agent testify on Capitol Hill that he's not even allowed to do his job. So he could lose his job if he actually does his job by arresting a certain number of illegals that are crossing the border. And this is coming directly from the administration, where they're being intimidated not to round up these illegals. I want to go to you, though, Judge, and ask you, do you think we're creeping towards a constitutional crisis? I mean, we have the courts, they haven't ruled yet, but they have done certain things, and you have the DOJ acting out of line with this federal court. If a court comes down and says this is unconstitutional, rules against this executive order, and the administration continues to defy it, is that a constitutional crisis? I mean, what happens?
They won't continue to defy it. I mean, the Department of Justice is going to comply with the judge. They got their hand caught in the cookie jar making a misrepresentation. I don't think anybody there wants to have that ever happen again. Although the DOJ has been sanctioned by other judges for its behavior in police prosecutions. The Obama administration may get angry. They may get upset, like they did with the case involving the campaign financing. But they're going to comply. They're not going to. If they don't comply, the Supreme Court will issue a mandamus to force them to comply. They're not going to go there. They're not.
I want to talk a little bit, Ainsley, if we can, about how we got here inside that courtroom, though, because I've seen some critics saying, well, this judge is political. Let me tell you what this Justice Department official, this Kathy Hartnett, said. She said, look, Judge, I didn't mean to mislead you. I just pointed out that a 2012 guideline granted 2-year reprieves for these people. But he said you asked for 3. Yeah. You waved the wand and gave them 3, which is specific to the new guidelines that you're asking for. Yes, and I told you not to move on them until I had ruled on them. And then he said, quote, "Can I trust what the president says? That's a yes or no question," the judge said, to which Hartnett said, "Yes, Your Honor."
What happened?
So I don't know if she was just feeling scolded or she meant he could trust the president. She was just yesing.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't going to say no. Right. I guarantee you that. But yeah, there was the DACA, which was one that protected children, which allowed 2 years of deferment. And the representation to the judge was, we're not doing anything with this executive order at all. We're going to, until we go forward with the court. And then they went ahead and gave 3-year deferments, which were only available under the executive order. And that's where a judge pointed out to her, no. She tried to claim, it was being done under the prior one. So they're on their heels right now. It's not a pretty place to be in federal court, I assure you.
Kirsten, what does this say about the Obama administration, in your opinion? Many people are accusing him of wanting the illegals to stay in America so they can vote democratically.
Oh, I don't think that's fair. I mean, I think my position on immigration is well known on this couch, and that I'm probably to the left of the president. So
let everybody in. Kirsten Powers is president.
Open the borders. No, but I think the president does have a legitimate interest in these. The humanitarian aspect of this. But I will say on this issue where the judge said, can I trust, what the administration says? As a person who's defended them on so many things, where they come out and they say things with such assurance that end up not being true, it gets really old. And we saw it with Obamacare. I mean, I defended Obamacare all the way up to the last minute of believing them, and then we saw how all the things they were saying weren't true. And so I do think that's a fair complaint. They're saying, there was just a big misunderstanding. But, I just think that they have a problem with telling the truth sometimes.
We'll pass it and then we'll figure out what's in the bill.